everybody, it's Magic Prepper. Just wanted to make a video today about the different sacrifices we sometimes have to make when choosing an EDC firearm for concealed carry. Generally, I like to carry something with a little bit higher capacity, mid-sized, double stack of some sort. Just because I feel that the additional capacity can always, come in handy in case you're ever in a situation where that is required versus having to reload per se. But there are definitely scenarios that arise where I wear clothing or I'm expecting to do some kind of activity where carrying a double stack 9mm isn't really feasible. I need to carry something a little bit smaller, more easy to conceal, and because of it being smaller and having less capacity, for me, I personally prefer to upgrade the caliber at that point. Generally, a little bit of a larger caliber is going to be more effective per round. So to mitigate the negativity of not having as many rounds in the firearm, then I go ahead and upgrade the caliber to make sure that it can be a little bit more effective with the few rounds that you have. I have a body type that only allows me to conceal and not print in certain ways. So right now I'm carrying a SIG P320 on my 4 o'clock, and then I'm also carrying my Smith & Wesson Model 60 on my appendix. Both of those are easily concealable when wearing something like an outer shirt of some kind or a flannel. And on most days, if I can wear a shirt like this, I'm going to carry the SIG P320. As you can see, it's not easy to see. It is concealed. It doesn't print very much. And, the color pattern and the darkness of the shirt does help conceal it as well. But if I want to wear a t-shirt, does my body type allow for a SIG P320 to be concealed underneath the t-shirt? No, it does not. So I was going to go ahead and demonstrate. As you guys can see, everything's well concealed right now. So I'll go ahead and show you the reason why sometimes I have to carry the Smith & Wesson J-frame as opposed to the double stack 9mm. So as you can see, got the J-frame right here in the appendix carry. Here's the SIG P320 right here, okay? So go ahead and untuck, just to kind of give you a demonstration of why it becomes so difficult for me when wearing something as simple as a t-shirt, which at times, especially in the summer, I prefer to. So right now, I feel that the Smith & Wesson J-frame is very well concealed. All I'm wearing is a basic cotton t-shirt. There's no pattern, there's nothing to it other than maybe being a darker color, but it's very concealed. I feel comfortable wearing this and walking around in public and not having everybody understand that I'm carrying a firearm. Whereas with the SIG, I feel like it sticks out like a sore thumb, especially towards the back. The handle, even though it's a compact size, is back here. Grip sticking out the back, letting everybody know it's here. And even just from the front, the amount of extra weight and bulk I have here on my hip, I feel only kind of really dictates the fact that I have a firearm. So when I do want to wear just a t-shirt, I do carry the J-frame. Why don't I carry something like a 380 or a single stack 9mm like a Smith & Wesson Shield? Well, I've actually owned all those firearms at one point or another, and in the long run, I've chosen the Smith & Wesson J-frame for the fact that I can get a better caliber out of it. 5 rounds of 357 Magnum makes me feel a lot more comfortable than 7 or 8 rounds of 380 or even 9mm. So we'll go ahead and just kind of show you the two firearms just so you have an idea, but I wanted to go ahead and bring this up to you as well because I feel that over the years when I've carried a lot of the pocket guns and stuff like that due to what I have to wear at work, I found that I prefer having that higher caliber and not feeling like I'm really lacking in the Department of Self-Defense. Okay, so here's the two firearms I generally carry as my EDC on a regular basis. On the left you have the Smith & Wesson Model 60 Pro Series and 357 Magnum, and on the right you have the SIG P320 Compact in 9mm. I prefer to carry the SIG P320 when possible because it does have a much higher capacity. The 9mm rounds that are out there on the market today are a lot more effective than they used to be, so I feel more confident in the caliber itself. The compact model carries 15 rounds in the magazine as well as one in the chamber, giving me 16 rounds of 9mm to feel confident with. Whereas the Smith & Wesson J-frame over here carries 5 rounds of 357 Magnum in the cylinder. Much less rounds. We're talking 33% of the rounds that the SIG P320 carries. However, the 357 Magnum cartridge is much more venerable than the 9mm in the sense of its lethality. It is a much stronger cartridge. It has more, what some people like to say, knockout power. And it is overall going to be more effective against larger dangers such as, animals or any kind of four-legged threats. The 9mm cartridge is definitely efficient and a good round for self-defense, but the 357 Magnum can handle a little bit more than the 9mm. I only choose to carry the J-frame due to clothing restrictions and concealment factor. If I could always wear clothes that would always conceal the SIG P320, I'd probably carry it every single day. But, you know, real life means that sometimes we have to wear different clothes for different events and different functions, which means that sometimes we have to sacrifice a little bit of capacity, but there's no reason you can't make up for it with a little bit of caliber, okay? So I do carry these two different types of ammunition. Generally, we have the Hornady Critical Duty, which is a plus P version of the 9mm Luger. Plus P just means there's a little bit more powder and a little bit more velocity out of the round coming out of the barrel. So this particular round comes out of the barrel at 1,175 feet per second. Versus the Hornady American Gunner 357 Magnum over here. It's the XTP bullet. That's a hollow point round. 125 grain bullet, but it comes out of the muzzle at 1,500 feet per second. So, just as a comparison, the Hornady Critical Duty 9mm plus P puts out about 380 foot-pounds of energy right out of the muzzle, whereas the Hornady 357 American Gunner in 125 grains puts out 625 foot-pounds of energy. So almost double the amount of power per round. Not saying that that's necessary for most of the threats that you're going to encounter, but if you are going to carry less rounds, might as well make them more powerful. So if we could consider the amount of energy foot-pounds in each round that we're carrying, I almost have 2 rounds of the 9mm per each 357 cartridge. Now, I know that's not how this actually works, and I'm sure you're aware of that as well, but in concept, that's what I'm kind of trying to go for by making up for the capacity issues. They also do make, lighter caliber offerings for both of the 357 Magnum and the 9mm. For 9mm, they have something like this Hornady Light. It's only a 100 grain bullet. It comes out of the muzzle at 1,175 or 1,125 feet per second as well. But it only produces 281 foot-pounds of energy, which for me is very light. We're talking, 38 special at that point, and it's good for being able to handle the recoil, and if it's what makes it so you can keep your rounds on target, then it's definitely what you want to run. For myself, I prefer something with a little more oomph, so the plus P does a little bit more for me in that aspect. Whereas for the 357 Magnum, you can pick yourself up a box of this Buffalo Bore. It's a tactical short barrel, lower recoil, low flash 357 Magnum. Now this model of the J-frame has a 3-inch barrel, which is a little bit more robust than your usual 2¼ inch barrels you find in these models. But it still has a 158 grain bullet coming out at 1,100 feet per second, which does give it 425 foot-pounds of energy out of the muzzle. And, for our purposes today, that's still more than what the 9mm plus P puts out, which I would regularly carry. So even if I want to go for like a lighter recoil, easier to handle round inside of the 357 Magnum platform here, it's still going to have a little bit more power behind it than my usual carry for 9mm. Do I think that there's a right or a wrong answer for this situation based on what you're capable of? Maybe you can carry a SIG P320 every single day. If that was the case, I'd probably do that. But if I have to choose between something that's going to be smaller anyway, like the Kimber Micro 9 I have, or like the Ruger LCP I used to carry, these days I've found that I'm going to go ahead and downgrade size, but I'm going to keep a larger caliber and just make sure that I feel a little bit more comfortable in the sense that at least each round counts a little bit more, okay? Just for size comparison, I did bring out a couple of the other more typical concealed carry rounds that you'll see out there on the market. So we've got the 9mm, which is always very popular, and I prefer it over most of your semi-automatic rounds. But then we also have the 380, and as you can see, the 380 is ridiculously small. So the 380 round is basically a shortened down 9mm without a tapered cartridge, and I mean, it's great for having a really small firearm, but that's all it's good for, in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of the 380. I never felt comfortable when I carried one in the sense of knockdown power or having the ability to stop a threat. But if it's your only option, of course, it's going to be much better than maybe even a 22 long rifle. And then over here I've got the 40 caliber, which is what a lot of the police and law enforcement agencies used to use. I know they're switching back to 9mm currently, but it is a much larger round. It's a little more robust than 9mm. And if you're going to have to downgrade size, maybe you pick up a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield, a single stack style semi-auto. Going up to a 40 caliber might not be the worst idea to make up for some of that capacity. These are just some basic examples. I just wanted to give you guys some ideas of what I meant when I say you have to sacrifice for your EDC firearm sometimes. But you know, give you some ideas of ways that you can mitigate some of that negativity of losing capacity. So hopefully you learned something today. I do want to say thank you guys. We reached over the 25 subscriber mark at this point, which I think is awesome. You know, I really appreciate that I'm getting the support from you all that I am. And hopefully I can keep making more content and give you guys some more things to think about in the world of survival, preparation, and everything revolving around SHTF. So without further ado, that's going to be Magic Prepper out.